Hello. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I started up a couple minutes early because I need to eat some lunch and figured just give some time for everyone to kind of settle in. So I'm going to pick some music and we're going to settle in and I'm going to eat my English muffin a little bit here. Hey Geraldine, how you doing, love? Hey Becca, how you doing, honey? All right. Let's get some music going. Oh, there we go. How's everybody doing today? Hello, Carolyn. How are you? No, Barb, you're not late today. It's good to see you guys. I'm just mowing down on a bit of an English muffin with some peanut butter. I'm going to turn the music down a little bit because that's a little loud. So what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about planning projects. How do we plan our projects? How do we do the layouts? All of that sort of stuff. Tammy, you know what? It's because I don't post the video on social media after we're done. And I think I've just some dumb luck. I'm doing good, Geraldine. I'm glad to hear you're doing great. Hey, Autumn. It feels like it's been a full day already. And it's only lunchtime. It's crazy to me. So we're going to talk about planning stuff. We're going to talk about how to do layouts on different pieces, planning larger pieces, and planning oddly shaped pieces. So this one's going to be a little bit more informal. And we're just going to kind of talk, and we're going to talk about each different kind of object that I typically paint and what my process is to go through and prep it, as well as planning the designs for it. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different ones. We're not going to do any painting today probably, but we're going to go through as many different substrates to paint on, canvases, surfaces, all of that, to kind of go over some different ideas. So I've got a bunch of stuff that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about flower pots. We're going to talk about mugs. We're going to talk about pendants. We're going to talk about canvases. We're going to talk about oddly shaped surfaces, all of that good stuff. Hey, Laura. Welcome. Hi, Diane. Yeah, some of it's just a lot of dumb luck, Tammy. Carolyn's absolutely wonderful, having a great day. Oh, that's fantastic to hear. I'm so glad. I'm a lot better now that I'm eating, to be brutally honest. Hi, Rex. How you doing, love? So good to see all of you here. Tabitha, you're a little red. Hello. How are you? You had trouble getting in today, Sharon? That's weird. I'm glad you're in now. Hopefully there's no more issues that come up. All right, so I'm going to keep eating here for a second, and we are going to jump into it. So this is going to be, like I said, a pretty informal tutorial. I'm going to be eating while we're doing this because of who I am as a person. I did not have my stuff together enough to be ready before this. And a couple things just kind of popped up today that threw me a little bit. So let's talk about different surfaces. I'm going to just show you a bunch of the different surfaces that I have lying around that I want to paint. I've got this wood cut out of a VW bus. I can't wait. I've got little pendants. I've got this little drawer thingy. I've got a globe. I've got a birdhouse. I've got canvases everywhere. So we're going to talk about all of this sort of stuff. The first thing that I tend to do, I'm good at making some food myself, right? Oh, so good. I hadn't bought any English muffins in a long time, and I just grabbed some the other day, and I'm so glad I did. Oh, this VW bus is calling to me big time, you guys. Big time. Okay, so when I'm looking at different pieces, sometimes I will see something on Pinterest or on Instagram that another artist has done that sparks an idea in me. So depending on what they do that idea on, sometimes I'll get the inspiration of, oh, I want to do that as well. So I'll get the same basic kind of thing to paint on. Or sometimes I'll say, oh, I really like that. I bet you it would really look good on whatever, right? And it just kind of comes to you. Then there are things that you pass in the store and you say, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and I really don't care. I just have to have it. And that's where this one came from. And there's a bunch of stuff like that. So when it's something that you buy and you say, I know I want to paint it, but I'm not quite sure how I want to do it yet, what happens for me anyway is I tend to leave it sitting out somewhere that I can see almost every single day and see when I'm sitting and doing work on other things, and just to kind of see what comes to me. Usually what I'll do too is if it's a wood surface, when I'm waiting for something to come to me, I'll start doing some of the prep work. That's what I did with this little shelf, this little drawer unit. I said I wasn't completely sure how I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted mandalas on the front, so I drew some guidelines. I drew my guidelines so they'd all be centered and nice and even all the way around. I sanded it down, especially when you get the craft cutout things. Give them a really good sanding. The more you sand it and the smoother it is, the easier it will be for you to paint. And then I go and I put my base coat on. A lot of times, I have a lot of items around here that have been base coated for literally months, and I haven't touched them yet. And when I go back to do them, I usually have to do another base coat on them. But that's okay, because sometimes just handling the piece, putting a base coat on, and just kind of being in a quiet space, I try not to sit and go, okay, I need to figure out what to do with that. I try to stay away from that kind of mindset, simply because if I'm trying to figure it out, it's much more difficult for something to just come to me. So I'm very much into the getting into a quiet headspace and just kind of thinking about it while I'm working with it, while I'm sanding it down, while I'm looking at it going, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait until I get an idea for that piece. It's going to be so much fun. I wonder what that idea is going to be. So it's a lot of self-talk there for me. Let's see, where do I get my pendants from? I make my pendants. These ones are resin pendants. So I make these little resin discs with a mold that I have. And then after I paint them, you see how there's kind of a lip on that there? That kind of holds the resin in for the next layer of resin. After I paint it, I put a little more resin on. It kind of even raises up and gives a little bit of a bubble on there. And that's how I finish that. However, at Dollarama, I found packs of these little keychain fobbies, which would be a perfect size for painting on to do wood ones or for keychains. I also have gone to a supplier here in Canada. She is in Markham, Ontario, I believe. And she makes these wood cutouts. She is Piesa, Piesa Supply on Etsy. She makes these larger ones, so you can see the size difference compared to these pendants. She makes larger ones, and she makes the smaller ones as well, and they come pre-drilled, which I really, really, really like. So that's a great place to go. She also makes a ton of different molds. If you're interested in making your own stones, she's fantastic. There's a lot of great suppliers out there. Dot Art Depot has a lot of stuff you can paint on. Happy Dotting Company. And Dollarama is one of my favorite places. The dollar store is one of my favorite places to find things to paint. Okay, I need another bite of my English muffin. These little keychain ones, though, were a bonus because they came with the keychain piece on it, which I really, really liked. I'll probably buy an extender for it to make it a longer one, and I'll probably honestly turn these ones into pendants, use this keychain and key fob to maybe make these bigger ones into keychains. When it comes to something that's pre-drilled, it's really important to know you got to take this hole into account with your design. What I tend to do is not plan around it, just understand that it's all going to be part of the design, and it just is, right? There's going to be a hole in it somewhere, and it's just going to have to work. Let me show you one that I've already done. I'll show you a couple different ideas. So this one, for example, this is one of these wood ones. I ended up pouring some resin over it because I wanted to see how it looks. I have to finish the back. I've got to sand the back down because there was all kinds of bubbling because I didn't tape the back. I've got to drill a new hole in here. But see how I really didn't worry about my design. I just kept it going. And then the keychain will go in there, and it's not going to be that big of a deal for a hole to be in there. Another option is to use that little hole as kind of like your center dot. That's what I did with this one. I used the hole and I did a bunch of tiny, tiny dots. Let's see if I can zoom in, because if I bring it up close to the camera, it's not going to work as well. But see all those tiny dots right around the hole that was drilled in there? And then I built my design, my spiral, all the way around that. So it's kind of up to you whether you want to just kind of paint something and just deal with the hole wherever it ends up being and deal with the fact that it is just going to interrupt the design a bit, or if you want to actually build that space into your design. All right, let me keep scrolling here. Thanks, Jade. How you doing, Jade? Right? It's totally like supermarket sweep. You go into the dollar store and you just wipe everything off the shelves that you want to paint. And there's all kinds of cool stuff you can get. I'll show you a couple of the other ones that I have. Let's see here. So I've got a big, let me zoom back out. A big ladybug to paint. Gotta bring back Buggate with that one. It makes everybody laugh. Everyone's walking out of the door and they're like, Buggate. It was funny as hell though, you guys. If any of you guys don't know what Buggate is, there was a video that I posted of a work in progress of painting a mug. And towards the end of it, there was a ladybug that zipped around one of my little paint containers. I live on a farm. It's going to happen. There's bugs. And let me tell you that TikTok lost their damn minds. There were people on there saying, "Oh my gosh, it's a bed bug. Oh my gosh, don't buy from this artist because you never know what you're going to get." Anyways, it was absolutely crazy because as many negative comments as there were 10 times more positive comments. People were commenting on these negative comments saying, "You should be ashamed of yourself. It's a bug. Get over it. It's not a big deal. How dare you try to ruin this woman's business?" It was really cool how everybody kind of came out of the woodwork. But anyway, so that's Buggate. So I gotta paint that ladybug. And I had somebody say to me, you should repost that video without the bug in it. You should cut it out because it doesn't really look really good for you. And my response to that was, I'm going to thank the bug. I gave the ladybug a promotion because that ladybug gave me a viral video. So you know what? It's all good. Excuse me. And I've got this maple leaf one as well. You can paint on absolutely anything. There are no rules. That is the biggest thing to remember. There are no rules. You can do this any way you want to. You guys will hear this from me a lot, that one of my mentors and teachers that I've worked with a lot over the last 6 to 7 months said that the question of, if you could do this any way you want, how would you want to do it? He said it's the wrong question because it shouldn't be a question. It should be a statement. Since I can do this any way I want to, how do I want to do it? And I look at that with all of these things too. How do I want to paint these? What do I want to do? What seems interesting to me? I've got little wood trays. I've got everything. And I've kind of got a bit of a problem with now being overrun with stuff to paint that I'm trying to kind of get through a lot of these things. So the first thing to do is, if you see something and it makes you kind of go, "Ooh, I wonder if I could do something with that." If it sounds like fun and it gives you that kind of a rush, know that it is possible. You can do anything that you want to do with this stuff. There are no rules. Where do you get the mold for the trays? So for these little guys, I got that mold off of Amazon, I believe. I'll show you what it looks like because I don't have the link for it. My mom actually bought it for me as a gift, so I don't have the link for it. but it just looks like this. It's a big white sheet. So I can make, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can make 24 of these discs at a time, which is kind of cool. Amazon's got some great stuff for those kind of molds. I hope that answers your question, Tammy. If it doesn't, please let me know, and we'll keep going from there. Chrissy, I bought a bunch of those with the same size but no keyring. Yeah, they're amazing, right? And I really like painting small stuff. I get a big kick out of doing little teeny tiny delicate detail. But that might not be for you, and that's okay. It's not for everybody. I know some artists who all they love to do is the little tiny stuff, but they hate doing the large canvases, and people who love doing the large canvases but don't like doing the little tiny stuff. It doesn't matter. You do what feels good and what excites you and sounds like fun. Okay? Brianna's watching from work. It's good to see you, Brianna. I miss you, love. We need another call soon. And Diane, husband calls it the fucking buck store. That's amazing. I'm so going to call it that now, Diane. Oh my God, I'm going to choke on my peanut butter. Oh, that's amazing. Good morning, Catherine. How are you? Yep, good old bug gate. People are weird. It's a ladybug. It's not a spider stuck in epoxy. Oh my gosh, really? You had that happen? And you got to find and say, now how can I encase it all the way and make it into something, right? And I promise I'm almost done eating my English muffin, so I'm not going to be chewing you in your ear much longer. All right. Hi, Shraddha. I hope I said your name right. It's good to see you. Catherine, the answer is yes. Oh, good. I'm glad it does, Tammy. Wonderful. How did you make those pendants black? Really good question. So there's two different things that I've done. One, when I started playing with resin, you can kind of see it's kind of see through a little bit. You can see a little of the white coming through the back. That's because for this one, I actually mixed in black glitter. See how it's kind of granular in there? But you can also mix in acrylic paint into your resin. The other option is I've got some clear ones. So if you don't want to mix it right into your resin, if you're going to use resin, you could take a clear disc like this and literally just paint the surface black. And then you'd have clear on one side and a black surface to paint on. Okay. Hey, Elizabeth, how you doing? Tammy, me too. I was a dental tech and made teeth and had to stain color on it. And I even did tattoos. Oh, that's cool. That's so cool, Tammy. Good morning, Susan. Yeah, you'd feel awful for the spider. That's not a good way to go. Not a good way to go. Hi, Kim. It's good to see you. Chewing ASMR. I hope that's good. Ooh, you just poured your first molds with gypsum. That's so exciting. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's amazing. Are you having fun with it? It's so satisfying. So you can take them out after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, but you need to let them dry for a full week before you paint on them. Just remember that, okay? I used to use plaster of Paris. And I like the gypsum better, number one, because it's stronger. Number two, because it's not as dusty. But the plaster of Paris, you can paint a lot sooner. So there's always something. Always a little bit of a trade-off. Diane, that's awesome. Good morning. Good morning in South California. Whereabouts are ya? I got to spend a lot of time in, oh my God, San Clemente. Oh my God, I fell in love with it. All right, one more last big mouthful of my thing here, and I'm going to be done chewing in your ear. All right. Talking with my mouthful. Here we go. Okay. So, when I'm starting to decide on a design, one of the first things that I kind of remind myself, and you know what? We're going to write down here. This might actually be helpful. I told you, this one is going to be a very informal tutorial, so bear with me as we go through this. I'm going to grab a piece of paper, because there are a few things that I try to remind myself of. Number one is I've got my different patterns, right? I've got one which is just all dots. All dot rows, I should say. So that would be something like this, right? That's just rows of dots. I'm not doing any walking dots. I'm not doing any swoops. I don't have the petal designs. It's a simple design, but this is where you really can play with color and with spacing to add in the space to put like those little gold dots in the middle, or you can make it a super, super tight pattern where you don't have that space to put the dots in between. So that's the first one. The second one is all petals. I'm going to try, right? The third one in my head is petals and swoops. Oops. And then the fourth is going to be all of the above. There's always variations in all of that as well, too. You can really do any combination of it. You can do all swoops if you want to. You can do a bunch of rows of dots and then add some petals. But those are the kind of core ones that I remind myself of. Okay. Hello in New Jersey. It's good to see you guys. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. Yes, the swoops are very satisfying. So once I remember that these are my kind of designs, I start to kind of go through them in my mind and say, what do I want to see? And do I have any colors in mind? So I kind of remind myself of this and say, these are the 4 things that I can kind of choose from. And then I want to know, what kind of color am I looking for? Right? What kind of color combination am I looking for? Am I using just a couple colors? Do I want to use a ton of colors? Because there's no limit. You could just start adding color anytime you want to, and you could use 15 different colors if you want to. It doesn't matter. You can choose all of that. But sometimes you'll have an idea that strikes you and your inspiration is color. Sometimes design is the inspiration. Sometimes the surface is the inspiration. It really all depends. Okay, so let me take you through the thought process on what I see when I look at some of these items. I love this kind of design, so I also look at timing too. How much time do I want to spend on it, right? The more detailed I get, and then adding top dots potentially after and all of that, the more detailed I get, the longer it's going to take me to complete the piece. Now, that's not an issue as far as am I willing to do it. It's, am I inspired and excited enough about this project for it to have staying power with me, right? So do I want to spend 30 hours painting a bus? Or do I want to spend 30 minutes painting a keychain, right? So that kind of helps decide for your surface. How long do you want to get in there? Sometimes I take longer. Like some of the more detailed pendants will take longer. Like this one took a good hour to do. It all depends on the level of design and how many top dots. This one took almost an hour just because of getting the pattern right and then alternating those top dots. So it's really a matter of timing too. Then you want to just kind of look at the piece and say, okay, do I want it to be uniform? Do I want to break it up a little bit? A good example for that is the idea of, I have this birdhouse, right? So when I'm looking at this birdhouse, do I want to have the same design everywhere? You know, I like the idea of rows of dots and the petals on the roof because that could kind of look like shingles. I like the idea of using this as something center and have it work its way out and around. So when I get a couple ideas like that, excuse me, then I'll usually get started. I'll start sanding, I'll put the base coat on. I'll start painting the stuff that I already know what I want to do with it. So I would start with the roof, right? After I pick all of my colors and decide what my colors are going to be. So it's one of those things that depending on what you're going to do, then you want to figure out guidelines as well. When you have something like this that has a big hole in it for doing your guidelines, what you can create for yourself are little stencils that can kind of go over top. So let me show you what I mean. I grabbed little bits of cork. These are the stencils I use to actually what's the word I'm thinking of? To cut my felt that goes on the bottom of my stone. So for example, I use this little bit of felt. So I actually have a little round piece of cork that I use as my stencil there. Do I use a sealer or for the base coat on the wood? I don't. I just do multiple coats of the paint. That's what I've done. So here's what you want to be able to do. If you have a hole that you want to treat as your center, there's a couple different things you can do. If you're unsure what you want your entire design to be, then adding guidelines is a good way to go, right? So, and actually, you know what? I'm going to use my flexible tape measure. A flexible tape measure is going to come in extremely handy for you as well. Oh, I did some packaging the other day. There we go. There it is. So a flexible tape measure, how many colors do you decide to use? That's honestly a crapshoot. I tend to look at it as, I typically go with like 3 to 5 colors if I want to do like a color grade. So for example, let me show you that painting there. Let's see if I can get up close enough to it. It actually has 5 different colors of teal and some gold in there. Is it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 4 or 5 different colors of teal and some gold. So when I'm doing a color grade, I like to do 4 or 5 colors. Sorry, I know I'm probably making you dizzy. I'm so sorry. So when I'm doing kind of a color grade or something that's very similar, I will look at that. I get a lot of color inspiration from Pinterest. If you go to Pinterest and search color palettes, and they're typically 5 or 6 colors usually together, but it's a great place to get color inspiration. Now, if I'm going to do a bunch of colors, what I will do is I will start usually by looking at what are the main colors that I want in there, right? Do I want multiple colors, but the main color to be teal? And how do I want to kind of work that out? Most of my pieces, though, have between 3 and 5 colors in them. That's kind of my standard, except for the rainbow, and then I go up to 8 colors for the rainbow. But you can stretch out the rainbow too, right? You don't have to go from red to orange. You can add a step or 2 in between the red and orange, right? So it depends on how big your piece is. If the piece is a little bit bigger, I'll sometimes use more. But something like the VW bus, I'll probably use at least the full rainbow, if not a couple extra colors in there as well to really, really mix it up. Like I'll probably use a couple different shades of green, 3 or 4 shades of blue, maybe a couple different shades of purple, maybe a pink and a purple mixed together too, to create a nice magenta, that kind of thing. It really depends on how much different kind of contrast you want to have in there. There are some beautiful, beautiful pieces out there that use tons and tons of colors. I've seen artists use like 10 to 15 colors on a piece. It's a really tough one to kind of figure out. I haven't gone that big in a number of colors. I think the most I've probably ever done is 10 different colors. And it usually comes from, I start with 4 or 5 base colors, and then I end up adding some mixtures in between once I start adding some color onto the whole thing here. I just want to give you guys a little bit of a fair warning. There is somebody pulling into the driveway, so you might hear the dogs barking a little bit. I hope that helps you guys. The thing is there's no rules, right? I'm very symmetrical. I like to do repetitions and to be able to see those repetitions. You might not want to see a repetition. You might want to do a rainbow and have every single row a completely different color and not have any repeating colors. You're going to want to increase the number of colors you use at that point, because then you're going to want more steps in between each color, or use that for a smaller piece, that kind of idea where you're not going to have a lot of room to do a lot of repetition. So if you are going to be painting something that you want the whole to be kind of the center of your mandala, you have a couple different options. The option that I go with now that I'm comfortable is I go with just literally starting to dot around this circle. You can just dot in one great big row and go all the way around. But if you guys have seen my tutorials where I like to do dot at 12, 6, 3, and 9 o'clock, and then start dividing each of those sections in half. And that helps me with my spacing to get a nice even spacing, and it sets me up really nicely to be able to do like every other dot when I get larger and I want to add in some petals going around. Okay, now the other option though, if you want to add in some more guidelines, like let's say I wanted to do a few rows of petals, but then see how in this particular piece, I did a bunch of petals and swoops and stuff, but then I did this solid line around here. So that means I need a guideline because I'm not at a point where I can just eyeball that and get my spacing right. So I would want to create some kind of guideline. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the size of this hole and I'm going to try and bisect it. So I'm going to grab, let me see if I can find my gray pencil. There it is. So what I would do is I would try and measure how big is this space, right? So I usually go to the 2. So it's about 2, a little over 1.25 inches. So let's just say that this is the middle, right? I would draw my lines here, and then I would do the same thing on this side. This is where the flexible tape measure can really come in handy, because if you can't get a ruler in there, and let's just assume that this is centered. Okay. So I'm drawing these lines here. There's a purpose to this, I promise you. So the next thing that I'm going to do is on my piece here, what you'd want to have is you would want to have guidelines drawn on this entire piece. It doesn't have to be completely centered, but what I want to do, actually, let me grab a smaller one. A smaller one will be a better visual. Hold on. Hold, please. There we go. There's another one. So what I would do is I would actually take my ruler and my Sharpie, and I would draw. And this does not have to be perfectly centered when you do this, and I'll show you why. I would draw just an intersecting. Try and make sure that it's nice and square, though. And draw that on my stencil. The reason for that is when I come back in here and I have those lines drawn, and this is where math is used totally, right? I try to not do too much math. I try to do it where, can I just divide it in half and will that work? Okay, so I have this. I'm actually going to draw these lines just a little bit bigger. So you draw them nice and big. And again, I promise this will make sense in a second. When you put this down, you can line up this. This tells me that my lines on the bottom weren't centered, but let's say that they were. I would go like this, or that this isn't centered. But if I spend some time and make sure that this is nice and level, then I can put this down, and then I can use my compass on top of this to do my circles that are larger. Okay, so having some templates like this, even having some small wood cutouts. When I was painting the guitars, they made me this that actually fit over the hole in the guitar, and this is where the neck of the guitar comes out, so that I had something to actually put my compass on and draw some of my guidelines. Because when you want to add in multiple rows like that, so do some petals and then do some rows of concentric circles like in this piece, I had to make sure that I had a lot of guidelines on there for me so that I had some kind of way to have a point of reference for these rows so that I could line up these dots with those extra guidelines that I drew. So if you are unsure of what you want your total design to be, start by adding a ton of guidelines. Adding a ton of them, okay? Always better to add more than to not have enough, okay? So remember to add your guidelines, but also remember to go over it with a nice light eraser to make sure that any of the waxiness in the pencil doesn't change the shape of your dots, okay? So creating lots of these circles, probably 0.5 centimeter to 1 centimeter apart. What would that be in inches? like 1/10 of an inch, maybe, or even 1/4 of an inch apart, having lots of these circles from the center all the way out. Or if you know that, hey, I'll probably build it out to around here, I would start drawing some circle guidelines maybe in around here and just add a ton of them, okay? So for example, on this particular piece, I added a ton of guidelines on here. I have no idea if I'm going to use them or not, but they're there and they're ready for me. And if I don't need them, I don't need them. I don't have to use them, okay? So that is part number 1. So going over the lines with an eraser. So this one here, I'll show you with this. So these lines, if I was to dot right on top of these pencil lines, what would end up happening is when I do my dot, I would get a circle, but it would almost pinch in at the sides. You see how it kind of pinches when I drew that? It pinches in at the sides. That's what can happen when you do that. So what you want to do is after you draw your guidelines, just go over really lightly with an eraser, just to get, so it's not a super thick, heavy line. So just kind of going over like this. Well, that one I'll get rid of, obviously, but, and just kind of lightly get rid of them. So you can still see them, but they're not as thick, right? Like this one, I could probably go over it a little bit more. But just get some of that waxiness out of there, and it's going to reduce the chance that you're going to get that pinching of the dots. Does that help, Tammy? So when in doubt, add a ton of guidelines. It's frustrating when that happens, isn't it, Tammy? It drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely bananas. So the eraser will help with that. So that is option number 1. Draw a ton of guidelines, more than you think you will need. There is no such thing as too many. There is such a thing as not enough, right? Now, Jade, how do you get them off at the end? So once you have finished painting, there's a couple different things you can do. If you're using a regular pencil, you can just go over it with an eraser. So there's some guidelines in here. Let's see if I can get up nice and close and show you. See if you can see them. In around this rose gold circle, you see there's some kind of chalk lines in there and chalk lines right in there. I will actually just go in with an eraser and try and erase them. Now, I used to use regular pencil, and a regular pencil will erase a little bit better than the one I've used here. Okay, so then you can just go in and erase it. There's even some over here. If you're using a stretched canvas, put your hand behind the canvas to give it a little bit of tension so that when you're pushing with the eraser, it doesn't dent it on you. Okay, so that's option number 1 for a regular pencil. Option number 2, which is what I went to after a regular pencil, I went to using a charcoal pencil. Charcoal pencils erase really well, and they, excuse me, and they will also wipe off with a wet cotton swab, a wet Q-tip. So that's another good option because anything that doesn't erase, you can get it with a wet Q-tip. The issue that I had with the charcoal pencil is that the ones that I had anyway were very, very fragile. So when I would sharpen them to try and get them into a really nice sharp point like this pencil, it would break all the time. And yes, Marshall, this is what I use now. Thanks to my friend Jan, she convinced me to use watercolor pencil crayons. She even sent me a couple so that I could try them. These are fantastic. So using a watercolor pencil crayon, they erase well, and they erase well with a wet cotton swab. Now, some erasers work differently. One thing that I learned from Lydia May, who is Dot Art Depot, is that not all erasers are created equal. She actually has a video on her YouTube channel where she talks about what erasers work the best and what kind of pencils work the best. I like this eraser. It tends to work really, really well, and it doesn't leave a lot of super fine eraser shavings, but she likes to use, what's it called? A gum eraser, maybe? I wonder if I still have one. I had one, and I'm sure I still have it somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. Bear with me 2 seconds here. Let me see if I can find it and show you. It's actually, it's like a little lump of clay that you can almost mold. And Oh my goodness. Oh, I've got such a mess. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, I found it. Yay. So this is my little pencil case of erasers and stuff that I have collected over. Oh, and I just ripped the zipper off. Oh, goodness, you guys. All right. So let's keep going. This one here is kind of like a gum eraser. It's a little more rubbery. Yes, thank you, Laura. A kneaded eraser. Yes, thank you. So it's a little piece of clay and you can almost knead it together. So I've tried a bunch of different erasers. I found dollar store erasers work great. These ones, these white square ones that are especially the cheap ones that you can get from the dollar store, they tend to almost be coated in plastic and they can leave some residue behind. The Westcott I really like, and this General's Tri-Tip, I really, really like these erasers. They've worked really, really well. Pink erasers, like this, they tend to leave some residue as well, but it's not too bad. Even the colored erasers that I get from the dollar store, they tend to work. The ones that I like the least are actually these square ones. You can buy chalk. You can buy these little charcoal sticks. I got these at a hardware store, and these are charcoal sticks as well that you can actually stick in a pencil sharpener and you can sharpen them. But again, they're very waxy, right? So all those different erasers are options that you can go out there and use. The watercolor pencil crayons, though, are definitely top of the list for being the easiest to get off of your painting. Okay, I definitely recommend using something that is a light enough color that you can see it clearly, because if you use something too dark, then if it doesn't erase fully, it's going to stay in the background and you might not get it all. And then sometimes when you varnish your piece, it can almost make it show up a little bit more. So just kind of keep that in mind. So if you want to plan out something, or you think you might want to do something that has these concentric circles, or if you're just completely unsure and you're going in and you're winging the design the whole way, more guidelines is better. Okay, the more guidelines, the better. Get lots of guidelines on there so that at any point in time, you can add in some of these concentric circles if you want to. Lots of guidelines to help when you're doing swoops and stuff too. I really like, especially if I'm going to do swoops on the edge, I like to have guidelines to know that I'm making my swoops go out to the same spot, because I'm not good at judging, or am I making all of my swoops the same length. Breathe Flow Muse, she doesn't use stencils for doing her swoops, but she gets them the same length all the time. Drives me crazy. I have no idea how she does it. I'm convinced she's a magic fairy or something, because she just gets it and I don't. So I like having some of those guidelines out there. Now, let's say you're partway through a piece though, and then you say, you know what, I'm tired of doing petals and swoops, and I want to add in some rows, right? So this can work whether you're on canvas or anything else. As long as you had the original north, south, east, west line. So as long as you have these lines on your original piece, if you didn't add in all of your circles, creating a little piece of cardstock, again, the same kind of way, where you can just line it up, right? So let's actually do it so that I can show you. Okay, so let me actually create a decent line here that's going to be straight, or at least perpendicular. So I'm going to go there. Oops, sorry guys. So I drew that one line, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these notches and measurements on the ruler to help make sure that I am staying completely perpendicular. And I'm drawing my line. So at the bare minimum you want to have, if you're unsure how you're going to go around the edge, or that there's a possibility that you might want to add more, make sure you at least have these lines. Because then if you get partway through your painting, what you don't want to do is go into a fresh painting and put the metal end of a compass into the center and poke a hole in your center dot when you're already starting through your painting. So what I would do is put a little piece of tape on this once it's really, really dry. Leave it a good 24 hours before you do this, and then go in and line this up, and then It will protect your center dot. It might dent it a little bit, but it's not going to do anywhere near the damage that actually putting this right on the dot would do. And then you can add in your circles as you go if you need them. So having little bits of cardstock, little pieces of wood that have this cross section on it so that you can line it up with your original guidelines. And so having a little wood like this would be perfect, right? Create that cross section. Pushing down, I can push down as hard as I want on this wood. The worst it's going to do is flatten the dot beneath me, and then I can still go in and put on another dot if I want to raise it up a little bit or make it a little puffier. But that's why also you want to wait a full 24 hours to make sure you can do that. Then you're not putting your compass down on the original dot. You have something kind of as a template to kind of protect it a little bit. Does that make sense so far, you guys? So even on the one like the birdhouse, this is going to be valuable for me to do, right? Because I'm going to want to spend some time really going through this and making sure I know what this measurement is and making sure I get proper cross-section lines on here so that if I decide to later on, I can always change my design partway through by putting a template on top to kind of cover this hole and allow me, not the wood, where's the cork one? What did I do with it? Oh my God. Whatever I did with it. It's around here somewhere. It's probably under here somewhere. But anyways, you could put that on top of the hole and then use that to go all the way around. Okay. Any questions on that so far, you guys? We're good? Okay. So when we're looking at flat surfaces, for example, like the roof of this birdhouse, what I would want to do is go through with my ruler and just notch out, like, let me get my pencil out again. It's in my compass now. First thing I could do is if I want to create a mandala on here, I could do that by measuring the size of, let's go, so I switch back and forth between inches and centimeters depending on which one gives me the closest to an actual even measurement. So this is, so what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's 4 and 14. So I'm going to go 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get my center. Right? And then I can go here and I can choose which one I want to measure off of. I can measure off of anywhere, right? Because it just needs to be 50%. It just needs to be divided in half. And then watch to make sure, again, that you're going to get something that's perpendicular. I usually measure in a couple of spots. I usually go here, and then I'll go up here. And you can kind of, especially with something slanted like this, you can kind of pick and choose where you measure from so that you actually have matching notches there. So that's 6.5, so 3.25. And then I can draw my line. I'll go back down here. I can draw my line down this way. And then I come here and I can just see how I'm using the line by the 4? I'm lining it up with the line that I drew underneath, right? And then I can draw my line across. Whoops, went wonky on the side, but that's okay. Right, because then I can go in now with my compass and I can start drawing as many lines as I want to. Sometimes I like to start at the widest, wherever the widest part is. So for example, on this one, let me actually turn this on its side here. Let's get you a better angle. So because this end is shorter than this end, and I kind of go in with my center, and I kind of line up almost right at that edge. Because this is going to be the largest full circle that I can do on this piece without going over the edges. Right? This is the largest full circle I'm going to be able to do. And then I'll go in and start making smaller ones as I go. right? And just make a whole bunch of them. Okay, so that's option number 1. Tons and tons and tons of guidelines. My compass, I think I got it, it's a Statler, so I think I probably got it at Staples, maybe Dollarama. I really like this one a lot. I've got a metal one, and because I really like that it's not a super sharp point, so it's not a weapon. I like that it's not a weapon because I hurt myself a lot, so I didn't want to stab myself with it. But it's a really nice one. I want to say probably Staples. Now, let's look at option number 2 for the roof. You giggling at me, Catherine? That's the one thing, right, that I'm always going to say with these tutorials. I don't know necessarily the best way to do it, but if we have something that we want to try, let's try it. Let's see what we can come up with. It's not always going to work out the first or second, sometimes even the third time we try, but we're going to keep going and we're going to find what works for us, right? Do I keep my guidelines a certain distance apart? No, I don't. I kind of eyeball it. But on some of these compasses, you can get ones. Oh, I keep trying to pull it up to the camera. But you can get ones that have these. So you could make it. So for example, if I have it this far, it's going to give me a 1-inch circle, right? So you can divide it up. And you can create them at an even distance if you like to. I just kind of eyeball it and just put a crap ton of them on there. Absolutely, you're laughing at me. That's good. I'm glad I'm entertaining. Hello, Noreen. How are you? Yeah, the Dollarama ones I'm not impressed with. I haven't found a good one there yet, but that doesn't mean try Dollar Tree too. Dollar Tree is always an option, and check your dollar store with more. Right? That might be an option too. I keep pulling my camera back and forgetting that because I zoomed in. All right. So let's look at another option though. Let's say that for this, I don't want to do a round mandala on it. Maybe I want to do rows of petals. Like the idea for a roof would look really cool with a bunch of petals coming down like this way, right? To look like shingles. So what I want to do is I want to create a bunch of lines. So what I do first is I cheat and I go through with my ruler and I just let my ruler do some of those measurements for me. This is another one where I'm going to do a ton of guidelines because I don't know for sure which one I'm going to use. I have seen some dot mandala artists though, and they measure it out so that they know that if it's this size of a space, they use a size 4. If it's this size of a space, they use a size 10. I don't do that. That's a little too meticulous for me. And for me, it doesn't feel like I'm in flow. Does that make sense? Oh, thank you, Noreen. It's good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Noreen, your mugs, I'm so glad that your daughters like them, and I have to do the work in progress videos for them. I dumped them all off of my phone and put them onto my hard drive, trying to clean up my phone, and now I have to go through the task of putting them back on my phone so I can edit them properly. But they'll be coming. They'll be coming. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one though too. I'm going to make sure that I divide this space in half. Right? And so I can get my perpendicular line in here. So I go to 2 different places. The reason I go to 2 different places is if I hadn't drawn these lines, I wouldn't have anything to level it with, right? So if I had just the one line, it would be really easy to have it misaligned. Now, when you've got another line already drawn, then you can cheat, right? Because as long as those lines on the ruler are matching up with the lines that you've already drawn and are at least parallel, then you can cheat and get it in there. I still like to draw the middle because sometimes what I'll do if I'm doing a flat surface like this, I might start with my first dot here and then work my way out. You can create measurements and create a whole grid though if you want to as well. Oh my goodness, there's always something. It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I'm going to have to tell you guys in a little bit about, I had a massive breakthrough yesterday, and I'll tell you guys about that in a little bit as we get going. So creating tons of guidelines. So I would be tempted to, I could create a whole bunch of guidelines going out this way, like really gridding it off all the way out and actually measuring it. So I could like go through here and like every 1/4 of an inch, just tick it off and make a line every 1/4 inch. I could do the same going all the way up and down this way. So I could make a super grid on this, right? And it really depends on how sure you are of your design and how you want to space it out, right? How do you want it centered? So for example, when we switch to the VW bus, this is going to be a whole different animal, right? This is going to be a massive animal to try and figure out how I want to do this. Because realistically, there's so many different shapes on here that are going to need to get painted that it's not going to necessarily be super easy to figure out the design for the whole thing. And then you have to worry about, do I want this pulling down on this side or this going up on that side? How do you want to do that? So you almost want to kind of go through this and draw a bunch of lines. Like, so for example, while we're just sitting here, I'm thinking that I want to draw this line here to really designate the roof, right? To really separate out the roof. So I would draw a nice straight line there so that I can see where my wall of the van ends and the roof of the van starts. And then I can always tape it off so that when I'm painting the roof, then I can pull the paint off, the painter's tape off. There's so many different things you can do. Like I'm thinking I'm going to dot around the windows and then do kind of like a bunch of small mandalas, kind of the size of the tire or a little bit bigger, just kind of all over the place. So imagine, how do I do this? Imagine like a whole bunch of these all over the sides kind of idea, right? And then you can just start drawing those lines on however you want to get them on there. Is this making sense to you guys? When it comes to building these more complex pieces, it really, really depends on how much of a plan you have. If you have a plan, your guidelines are going to come naturally to you because you're going to know how you want to block it out. Now, I'm going to show you guys something, and you have to promise to keep it between us because I haven't started working on it yet. And I'm waiting for a day when I'm completely done the rest of my custom mug orders, and I'm going to take a full day and work on this piece. Okay? Yeah, yeah, let's do that, Tammy. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so fun. I'm so excited. Okay, so I had this, I drew a canvas with the intention that I was going to do a large round canvas with this kind of design, an off-center spiral, okay? And then I drew it. Tell me what you see. Calling my geeks. I'm calling my geeks. What do you see? I'm waiting for your answers. Christy, I'm talking to you. Tell me what you guys see when you look at this. Tell me if you see it. Spiderweb. Yes, that's Christy. Ding, ding, ding. Christy for the win. Death Star. Yeah. That's okay. A spiderweb would be really cool too. Imagine doing this all in like white pearl with little drips of dots here and there. That would be super freaking cool, Noreen. So this is going to be a Death Star. So I went like uber planning on this one, right? So this is what I drew, and then that idea came to me. So now I have to kind of modify this. Okay, thank you. Yeah, don't spoil. This was a secret surprise. But I'm going to be drawing some more guidelines on here, and I actually have it broken down so that how do I want the colors to go in here, and I've got 5 different colors of gray, and how am I going to change those colors depending on where it is based on images that I've seen of the Death Star, right? So in this one is going to take a lot of planning, but it's because I have a very, very specific idea, and I really want it to turn out the way that I want it to turn out, right? So it really all comes down to, what is your inspiration for the piece? Is it, I went out and I bought 5 new paint colors and I just want to paint everything with these colors because they're so freaking pretty? right? Or is it that you saw a particular design and say, I loved this design and I want to create this design, right? I'm just going to keep grabbing random pieces that I have lying around. Like maybe you see this and you go, oh, I want to do that. So then you can start to block it off similarly based on what you see here. If you are unsure of what the design is going to be, maybe you know what the colors are, but you don't know what the design is, starting off by adding a crap ton of guidelines is the safe way to start. Okay? Does that make sense, you guys? This one, Noreen? You like this one? I got to get this cleaned up and varnished. There's some cracks in it, and I got to fix up the back one. This one's a wood panel. I love these wood panels, by the way. These are my favorite to paint on. Favorite. They're just awesome to paint on. And give them a really good sanding, too. Noreen, I'm thinking I want to try this one, and I want to try adding resin on the top of it, too. Making it into a nice glossy resin piece. You want to be my guinea pig, Noreen? Thanks, guys. This is from a couple of the earlier tutorials that we did. This was the tutorial we did on top dots, on concentric circles. So I want to say that was within like the first 3 or 4 tutorials like this that I ever did. So this tutorial, though, these ones are available on my website or as a part of my Patreon membership to get you these tutorials. The other one, too, I should mention really quickly that is on my Patreon, but it's not available on my site, is this grayscale one, where we go through blocking it and we create this piece here. This is actually a magnet that I have. You can paint on anything. That's the beautiful part, okay? So keep that in mind that if you want access to the previous tutorials, they're available individually on my website or as part of the Patreon membership. I think the Patreon membership works out to $17 Canadian, it's $13 US a month, and it gives you access to the whole library. So just keep that in mind. It's an option there. Oh, it's on my Patreon, Laura. Sorry, it's a membership site, basically, where you pay a monthly fee for access to certain content. It's called Patreon. It's on my... Yeah, Barb did that really, really good. The grayscale, Barb's, you turned that one into you did such a good job on that one. It was a good one. So my Patreon is that membership site. The link to it is in my bio. You can sign up for a monthly fee. Like I said, I think it's $13 US a month, and it'll give you access to all my previous tutorials. Let me just go and see how many are on there right now. So past, present, and anything upcoming are all going to be on that Patreon membership. So let me see, how many do we have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we've got 14 tutorials on there right now. I'm going to be I add to them every single week. So this tutorial, for example, that we're doing today, it's free to attend it live. But if you want access to the recording, you can either purchase that access individually, or you can jump into the Patreon membership and just know that if I do the tutorial on the Saturday, then by the Monday evening, the tutorial's on Patreon, and then you can just go through it at your own pace. I know a lot of my Patreon members do like to do that. They kind of sit and hang out on the live and get some ideas. Sometimes they paint along or work on other projects, but they know they can go back to the tutorial and try it again after. So it's an option out there for you anyways. But these lives, just to clarify, these lives, when we get together on Saturday afternoons, if you are able to join live, it is always going to be free, okay? So anyways, let's get back to planning. So my Death Star one, like I said, I'm going to be blocking out colors. I'm going to be doing a ton of planning, but it's because I have something very, very specific that I want to go to. Whereas with these other items where I'm like, I don't really know what I want to do, the first thing that I will try to do is pick colors, because for me, a lot of the design inspiration comes to me after I know what colors I'm going to use. Oh my gosh, you're welcome, Barb. It was so good. Have you posted that on the Facebook group yet, Barb? You guys have to see it. She did such an incredible job on it. It's so freaking beautiful. That first tutorial for the grayscale magnet, I think it was 4.5 hour tutorial. It was a big one. It was a big, big one. But I love this one too. I need to do this one on a bigger piece. I need to do this one on a bigger one for sure. I miss doing some of the grayscales. There's so many cool ideas right now that I want to get into, and it's just, I just don't have enough time. There's not enough hours in the day. Okay, so let's talk about other surfaces. Let's talk about rounded surfaces, because rounded surfaces like planters. This is a planter I'm working on right now for a custom order. Isn't it pretty? I love it, I love it, I love it. I think I'm going to do top dots on all the blue to make it pop a little bit more. So this kind of idea would account for on mugs, on planters, let's show you anything kind of rounded. Ooh. Teapots. And I even have, and this has been, I've had this coated in black paint for probably almost a year. A little mini globe. I just can't wait. I can't wait. I think I'm going to do the mini globe actually in these colors, with lots and lots of top dots and different stuff. Thanks, Noreen. So many cool things. So many cool things to paint. There is no limit. If you want to paint on it, chances are there is a way to do it. Right? Like, I have these little candles that I got at the dollar store. They came in a pack of 3 for $2. And what I can tell you is once these candles are burnt out, I'm going to be cleaning these out and I'm going to be painting on them. Pretty much everything I see now, I bet you I could paint on that. I bet you I could paint on that. Once you remember that there are no rules and you can do this any way you want to, there are no limits. You see something, you like it, you can paint on it. Okay? Are you serious, Noreen? Oh, that's so cool. I just can't wait. Like, I've taken it apart and put it back together. I moved it from my old apartment out here to the farm. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Oh, neon metallics would be cool. Oh, I've got lots of blues and greens and teal metallics. I don't have any neons, but I wonder if I could mix neon paints in with the metallics, couldn't I? Because I got hot pink and I've got a regular pink metallic. So many ideas. So many ideas. Catherine, yes, everything, right? You can paint on anything and everything. It's just a matter of how are you going to block it out and what are the ideas that you want. So like I said, your inspiration is going to come from a few different places. You might see a design that you like. You might see an item and go, oh, I wish I could paint on that. If you wish you could, you can. Do it. And every old person here now wishing they kept their globes, right? Yeah. I'm really wishing I'd kept all of them. But I found this one. This was a dollar store find. But I want to say I bought this probably 5 years ago because it actually was a little globe that I had as a piece of decor. And then I looked at it one day. I'm like, I'm going to paint that. There was an artist who actually did a large globe, and I wish I could find her because her color combinations and the way she does top dots and color. She didn't do dot mandalas, but she did a lot of brush swoops and stuff. And oh my God, her work was incredible. If I find it, I will post her on the group. That's one of the things I want to start adding into the group is being able to say, here's some other artists that are amazing and have some great ideas, right? I have to wait. Must control myself. Poor Noreen's got an addiction. And I love you, Noreen. I'm so grateful for all of you guys and all of the support. And I'm just so happy that you like my stuff, you know? I have this vision of my tiny house and having it covered in my own artwork because I love it. Like I want to paint my own tiles for the backsplash. I want to paint my cupboards funky colors and put mandalas all over the walls. I want to create a meditation space and put my artwork on meditation cushions and curtains and candle holders and journals and wall hangings and everything. Just the idea of having it everywhere to me sounds like it would be really, really peaceful and fun. So the fact that you guys want any of my stuff in your house just makes me keep going. So thank you for all of that love. So when we're talking about round surfaces, our tiny house community, yes. And I always said that I was going to build a tiny house community. I might have told you guys this before. Build a tiny house community where no kids are allowed, adults only. And that we call it the compound. So that, and my security system was going to be that I'm going to take a bunch of old branches and make them into like hanging pentagrams and stuff that looks like devil worship stuff and hang it in the trees along the property line, because then nobody will come onto my property because they'll be too scared to. I figured that's a great security system. Like, I don't need angry dogs. I don't need guns. I just need upside down pentagrams made of sticks hanging in the trees. Nobody's going to come onto my property when they see that. I'm all about finding the best ways for isolation. So we'll keep you posted when the tiny house community is there. He hates lots of colors. Well, then we'll do a grayscale one for you, Tammy. Just tons of grayscale ones, and that'll be okay. Or pick 1 or 2 colors. But there really is no limit to all of this, right? So let's talk about these rounded surfaces. So when I started painting the mugs, I had mugs that were straight and flat, right? So a nice straight edge here. Painter's tape, if you've got a nice straight edge, painter's tape works really, really well. Painter's tape can work on the ones that do not have, oh, that's Rachel's. This is Rachel's mug that I have to paint. Ones that don't have a straight edge, painter's tape can work well. Oh, Rex, that's brilliant. Yes, chicken bone wind chimes. Yes, fantastic. Painter's tape can still work, but here is the pain in the butt when it comes to the painter's tape. Painter's tape is flat. This is not. So when you go with painter's tape, it's very, very difficult to keep a super straight line. Okay, so on something like the globe, what I'm hoping to do is almost figure out a way to draw it on somehow. Like if I can hold it here and hold my pencil and spin the globe, that would be ideal, and to do some measurements with the measuring tape, right? Something like this is possible for that. Now, when it's the ceramic, there's really no way to add those guidelines on there. I mean, it's possible. And crazy baby doll head art. Oh my gosh, Rex, totally. I'm going to hire you to design it. Oh my gosh, and I saw some of the cutest garden gnomes online. Oh, internet's a wormhole. Anyways, so you could do that with this as well. You could measure from the base of your mug down to where you want your first line to be or where you want your center to be and create a bunch of marks. Dry erase marker can work on these, but the thing is you can't paint over the dry erase marker because it does an even more pronounced pinchy thing compared to the pencil lines on your canvas. So it would need to be there to be a guideline for you for where you line your tape up there. Ah, oh, fantastic, Rex. You're amazing. Oh, yeah, we got to put them in the garden, Sharon. That'd be awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, right, Tammy? Yeah. This is welcome to my tutorials. We go off on a lot of tangents, but we have fun. It's all part of it. Because it's so fun, right? Like, this is my fun part where I'm like, let's just talk about ideas and what do we want to do? And we could try this and we could try this. And it's just fun, and it leads to other things in life as well that we end up talking about. So you could use a dry erase marker. You could measure from the top down. This again is where your flexible tape measure is really going to come in handy if you're painting on rounded surfaces. So this would also work on things like wine glasses, anything that's rounded and curved, as opposed to the nice straight flat edge, right? Now, if you are painting glass, now I'm gonna grab, okay, actually, let me keep going with this. So when it's something round like this, like a mug or the teapot, here is what I would do. I have some thread, some decorative string that I got from the dollar store. This works really well for stuff like this. Now, with this one, I would have to tape it, right? Tape it here, and then I can eyeball it all the way around, but it's going to give me a much straighter line. Or, again, I can measure from the bottom or the top up. Oops. I can measure from the bottom or the top to find that spot, get a dry erase marker, and then line up my painter's tape around there. For the mugs, I really like this string though, because it's very, very easy to wrap it through. To wrap it through and tie it off. And then it's just a matter of tying it So once I tie it, I spin it around so that the knot is in the handle, and then just eyeballing it around the edge does it look like it's straight from every angle as I go around the mug. Okay, this has worked a lot better for me. Oh, a laser line you could totally do, Lori. Look at you, smarty pants, Miss Fancy Pants, and a laser line. I love it. Now I gotta go buy a laser. Lori, I love it. That's awesome. That's a great idea. You totally could. You could totally use a laser line. 100%. I really like the string for the mugs. It works really, really well for me. So for now, that works cool. Okay. Now, when I'm doing something like the planter, I cheat with the planters, right? Why make life more difficult than we need it to be? If you start with the bottom edge, you're already starting with a straight line and work your way up. You can do that on the mugs. You can do that on the teapot if you want to, right? You don't have to start. Like I could start around the top here and just start building my design all the way down, and it's going to be straight all the way down. It's only, well, thank you. You're welcome. It is a cool job, eh, Janice? Haunted house, that'd be awesome. I would not do well in that, but I bet you it was fun and lots of cool ideas. So you can start up at the top and work your way down. You can start at the bottom, work your way up. It's really only if you want to have a center line like I do on my mugs, right? Like this one, I tied it around so that I could make this my very first line. Okay. So it depends on where you want your starting point to be. Do you want it to be in the middle and then have it fan out in either direction? Or are you okay with it starting at the top and going down, or the bottom and going up? For the teapot, I'm probably going to paint it from the top down because I'm going to add this into part of the mandala there. Probably. That's what I say right now. We'll see how many times I change my mind before I actually paint it. Okay? But there's so many options for this. So make it as easy on yourself as possible. If you start tying a string around and you just can't get it straight and it's frustrating for you, stop. Go and start painting from the bottom, work your way up, and decide if you like it or not. Right? Give yourself time to practice on it, because all of your surfaces, remember, all the different surfaces are going to behave differently with the paint as well. Right? Canvas is going to behave differently than wood. That's going to behave differently than ceramics and glass. Right? Ceramics and glass, you need different paints for. You need, those paints are a little bit thicker. Your paints are going to be different compared to working with canvas because you're dealing with multi-surface paint as opposed to craft acrylics. The surface is more shiny, so if they're really watery paints, you're going to risk a lot of running and dripping. If so everything is going to just behave a little bit differently. Your tools are going to behave a little bit differently. So you really want to give yourself permission to practice. If you can, and if you are looking to paint on something that is relatively inexpensive, buy yourself a couple of them if you can, just to give yourself a chance to practice and see what you like. Now, I'm going to pull out a vase that I have. And unfortunately, it still has some water in it from the flowers that I had in there for a little while. I have not cleaned that out yet. So let's look at this vase. Okay, when you are looking at something like this, right? So it's clear. There's a couple different things. You can draw your guidelines on, but what you can also do is you could create a piece of cardstock about this size. Draw a whole bunch of guidelines on the cardstock and then place it inside and tape it on the inside. Okay, that's what I do with some of these, is put it on the inside so that I have a template in there. Getting some cardstock from the dollar store, drawing a bunch of guidelines on it with some Sharpies and something that's going to last a little while, and have a few different sizes. Have some small ones, have some larger ones, and then that gives you some options for templating out designs on surfaces that it's really hard to create those kinds of designs. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay. Okay, so we've covered an awful lot here right now, and I only remember some of what I've said. So, with that being said, what questions do you guys have? Are there surfaces that you have questions about that I can answer for you? Okay, awesome. I'm glad that makes sense. Templates are amazing. The reason I came up with the templates is because I used to use it with drawing all the time. When I was drawing mandalas, I hated having a nice, clean piece of paper and then having to draw a bunch of guidelines and wondering if they were going to erase properly, right, when I was drawing on paper. So I actually got what's called a light pad, and you plug it in and it's just an underlight, like a backlight that allows the light to shine through your templates and go on there, right? So I thought the same thing with this. Now, the hard part is, and keep this in mind, if you're painting on something clear, when you have your guidelines in behind, you still have the thickness of the glass to deal with, and it distorts things a little bit. You end up hitting the glass before you think you're going to because you're focusing on the guidelines on the paper. So just keep that in mind, that it is a little bit disorienting. Those kinds of projects are honestly done without a ton of light all over the place, because the more light you have, the more glare you have on the glass. And same with the ceramics. When I'm doing mugs and stuff, I really struggle with making sure that I've got really good lighting and not too much lighting. Okay. All right, so let's see. So you don't have to use a base coat on the cups. No, you can paint right on the ceramic. What you want to do is make sure that it's a nice ceramic that's, you know, like, again, I just buy my mugs at the dollar store. So you just get your ceramic and you want to get some rubbing alcohol and wipe down the surface, clean the surface really, really well with the rubbing alcohol. That's going to remove any oils that are there from your hands. I mean, it's going to get on there anyway because you're still going to be painting, but you could also paint in gloves if you want to keep the oils from your hands, but then you're risking getting potential powder on there, right? But anyways, I just wipe them down, and same with the glass, wipe it down with rubbing alcohol, okay, to give it a good clean. Making sure that if you're using glass, if you are using metal, if you are painting on ceramic, you are using multi-surface acrylic paints. So you want to make sure that it says multi-surface right on the bottle. If you don't and you use regular craft acrylics, you can still use them, but they are very unlikely to stay for very long. Okay? Tammy, you want to see hearts? All right. So how do we prep a heart for painting? Or how do we paint hearts? I have a heart trinket dish. How do I... Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. I just had to read your next comment, didn't I? Okay, so what I do with these, this is where these stencils can really come in handy, okay? Sorry, not the bendable ones. You can get some stencils from Dot Art Depot. That are like these, like a little sheet of paper that are plastic. These come in really, really handy when you're painting stuff like this, because then you can kind of eyeball it and see where is this full circle going to come to, right? And then you can kind of make sure that it's centered, and you can kind of use it to eyeball it. Now on a trinket dish, this is where you're going to want to have your flexible tape measure. So I know that it's not a heart shape, but let me find my little tray. Anything that has a dip in it like this that you're going to want to go into, you're going to want your flexible tape measure so that you can get in there and measure. So even if I have to start it at the 3 and then pull it out this way so that I can measure my size and create that center again, okay? If you have a trinket dish, that's where the dry erase marker could come in handy again. Or just at least if you can find the center and then use what I call the clock method, where you have your center dot and then you put your next dot at 12, spin it around, and kind of space it all out that way, and dividing those spaces in half. That's how I would start a trinket dish. So what I'm talking about there, Tammy, is, let me just put a dot down. So let me show you what I mean. So if you can find your center, right? I'm going to try and make this relatively big, but I'm going to do it on the pendant because I can pull the paint off of it. I'll show you what I mean here, okay? This is how I do my spacing if I don't put hardly any guidelines on. Get your center cross section. You've got your center dot, right? I'm just trying to make this nice and big so you can see it. I'll pick this off the pendant later. But then when I go in and I want to do my first row of dots around here. Let me just grab a different color so it stands out. Whoop. Throw my paints all over the place. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place my first dot at 12 o'clock. Then I'm gonna spin this around, and you can do this with your trinket dish. Then spin it around, so I'm dotting at 12 o'clock again. I find it much easier to keep a nice straight line when I'm dotting across from me. If I was to dot at 12 and then try to dot at 6, chances are we all naturally lean one way or the other. So this I find helps me keep a much straighter line. I find it much easier to stay straight and go here as opposed to pull down where my hand kind of naturally pulls to the right a little bit. And then we, oops, turn it around. Keep going at 12 o'clock. And this is going to get you your base down, and this is what's going to give you your spacing, okay? So then we go across here again at 12 o'clock. And then we start going in and dividing the spaces in half. So divide that one in half. I still dot at 12 o'clock. Excuse me. 12 o'clock. And 12 o'clock. And then we can go in and divide up again. This is the same process that I follow, you guys, when I'm creating those large circles, like on that metallic piece. When I had those guidelines laid down and I knew that I was going to create a large round circle, I started on the guidelines dotting at 12 o'clock and then just continually dividing those spaces in half. Okay. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense, Tammy. If you think that that's going to work for you. Let me know your thoughts on that one, okay? I bought a wood shape to try this. What kind of paint should I get? You can get any kind of craft acrylic paints that you find at Michael's, Walmart, the dollar store. I think with the wood, you'll be fine with just regular craft acrylic paints. Let me know how you make out, Tammy. If you run into any troubles, you just reach out to me, okay? And I'll do my best to help you. Hello, Belbeer. How are you? It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. How have you been? This is a great group today, you guys. I hope you're having fun. I hope that this is helpful for you. Again, I know it's a little bit more of an informal kind of tutorial, but I hope that this helps. What other questions do we have? What other questions do we have? What do we got? What do we got? So yeah, Tammy, you keep me posted on that one and let me know how you make out with that. Your flexible tape measure, find your center, and sometimes you have to eyeball it because it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact center, right? Oh, Belbeer, I'm so sorry. Oh, sending you so much love and healing. Sending you so much love. Okay, so let's talk about this for one quick second before we move on. You do not have to find the exact center of your heart either. Keep moving your flexible tape measure around until you get to a spot where you say, I think that would look good, because the exact center in a heart isn't always the most pleasing to the eye, right? The exact center could be up a little bit higher or lower wherever you need it to be, wherever it is, and it still might not look the way that you want it to, depending on the shape of a heart. So you want to really eyeball it there a little bit, okay? So bear with me 1 second here. I'm just going to catch up on comments here. So hold on. Belbeer, we're all sending you so much love. Please take care of yourself. I hope that you recover very quickly, and I hope you're okay. Janice, do I ever do overlapping mandalas? Yes, I do. And there is a tutorial on that as well from February 27th and March 6th. Let me show you the ones I did. So these ones here. So you start by drawing out the spots where you want, and then you can create a border and really kind of get in there and do some overlapping stuff. Okay, so let's... Oh, good. I'm glad, Geraldine. Do I add a medium to a multi-surface paint? I don't, Joni, just because I'm nervous about the medium impacting, because multi-surface are formulated to adhere to really smooth surfaces like ceramic and glass. My concern would be if I add medium to it, that it's going to reduce that adherence. Delicate Dots Andrea and I were actually talking about this, and she wrote to a couple of the different paint companies, and they actually said not to add any medium either. So definitely stay away from that. I'm doing okay, Balbeer. It's good to see you. I'm really glad to see you, and I'm doing well. Keeping busy and dealing with the new lockdown in Ontario and trying to deal with all of that stuff. So I'm just trying to stay nice and busy with as much painting as I can get into. Oh, you're welcome, honey. You're welcome, you guys. I'm glad. I have a hard time picking out which size dotting tool to use. Okay, so when you're unsure what size dotting tool to use, err on the side of caution and go a smaller. Right? Go a little bit smaller. What you're going to end up finding is that as you start painting, you're going to have your go-to sizes. Like, I've done enough pendants now that I know that my center dot size is an 8. Right? But that took some trial and error. I did some with 6s, I did some with 10s, and I just started to pay attention to what I liked and what I didn't like. So if you don't like the size, or if you're unsure, go with small. The reason I say that is because if it's too small, you can paint right over top of it. You don't have to paint over with your base coat. You don't have to pull the paint off. You can just go in with a different size tool and dot right over top of it. If you make the dot too large, then if you don't like it, then you have to pull the paint off, paint back over with your base coat if you're doing that on canvas or wood, wait for it to dry, and then go in and try again. So I always err on the side of caution. If I'm not sure, I go with something too small. And if you do have to pull the paint off and it takes you a few times, it's okay. Happens to me all the time that I choose the wrong size tool and the dots are either too small or too large and I have to redo it. You have to almost make friends with making mistakes. Yeah, the overlapping is really cool. It's something I want to do more of. I'd actually started a larger canvas that I was going to add some overlapping stuff to, but of course I custom mixed paints and now I don't have those paints custom mixed anymore, so I got to start it over. But we'll do another tutorial on overlapping as well. Hey Mandy, how are you? I'm doing good, thank you. How are you? You're welcome, Joni. I wonder why you're so late on the lockdown. I have lots of answers for you on that one, Lori, but none of them are very kind or not politically biased, let's say. We are incredibly late, and it's our legislature and our people who put those things in place. It's becoming glaringly apparent that it's all about the money, right? You follow the money and you find out why things are or aren't happening the way they are. You're welcome, Geraldine. Yeah, it actually works out really well, right? And here's an idea too. When I do the paw nuggets, where I do the paw print in the middle, I will use one of my larger dotting tools as a stencil and draw it around, because I don't do a center dot on those. I leave a space. So I'll use a dotting tool for that, or I'll create a stencil. Michaels has a great stencil. It's a piece of plastic, very much like this, only a little bit thicker. I had one. I mean, I still have it, but it is lost in the abyss in here somewhere. In the abyss of mess and clutter. But it actually had about 50 different size circles. And it's just a circle stencil. So you could have the stencil and you could create all these different sizes in the middle, right? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Axel. I didn't realize, it totally threw me. How are you doing? I missed you last night. We were quiet last night, but it was a little bit busy on the live, eh? It's good to see you. Or you could live in Texas and nobody cares and they're running around doing stupid stuff. Well, that too. Yeah. I found at Michael's the other day little 3x3 canvases that are already lined out for mandalas. Oh, that's cool, Catherine. That's awesome. That's really cool. There's so many cool tools out there, you guys. I'm actually in the process of gathering up a list of all of my favorite products on Amazon that can help with this. So I will make sure to post the link to that list for you as soon as I get it together. It's going to take me a little while, but I will definitely get that up there for you guys. It can link to things like the stencils, the dotting tools, different paints, all of that sort of stuff. So I'll definitely put that in there. Pack of 4, that's really good. Were they expensive? $5-10 maybe? I was shocked that there was a lockdown in certain places in there. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of ridiculous. Now it's the whole province. We are now 1 week into a 6-week stay-at-home order. And the scary thing is here in Ontario is that the government has given the police permission to just stop people randomly and ask them a bunch of questions as to why they are not at home. There's a lot of police departments that are saying they are not going to do that because it infringes on the rights, and they know which communities are going to be targeted and things like that. So, yeah, it's an interesting time to be in Ontario. I wouldn't say it's a great time to be in Ontario. There's a part of me that's like, I kind of wish that I still lived in New Brunswick. However, it is what it is, right? I'm trying to just do my part and not be out, only go out for a reason, and stay home. And which, you know what? I'm happier at home anyway. I'm one of those introverts, so I'm trying my best to do that. I didn't join for long last night. Was busy. I had a conference to go to online today. How is it? Is it already done? Axel, it was good to see you regardless. Yeah, Catherine, are they white or are they black? Sorry to hear you're on lockdown. I was hoping a better summer, but not so sure it's going to happen totally, right? You're in Pennsylvania. I hope everyone's doing okay. I hope you guys are doing okay there. I was kind of thinking the same thing, and it's where I am grateful to live where I live. I live on a farm with friends. We have animals here. We have 50 acres of property. There's lots of space to get out and not leave the property and still not feel completely boxed in. I'm one of those people, though, that when I was in my apartment for almost all of 2020, I was totally fine, but I'm a real homebody. I like being at home. I don't mind the isolation, but I know it's really, really tough for a lot of people. And I was lucky enough that I didn't have to go anywhere, right? And then there's the added stress for that. It's so much. They had black and white ones. Ooh. Geraldine asks, is anyone else having a hard time finding paint? Michael's have hardly anything, and the dollar stores don't have any new colors. Yeah, the dollar store tends to only carry 10 to 15 different colors, and they're pretty standard all the time. Have you tried, which dollar stores have you tried, Geraldine? Because I'm thinking in the Maritimes, do you guys have Dollar Tree down there? Because have you checked out the Great Canadian Dollar Store? I'm wondering if they'd have different supplies than what Dollarama would have too. It's a really tough one. I think you're going to have your best bets are going to be online, but even them, they're going to be a little bit tight, right? So yeah, it's a tough one. Oh, you're in California, Lori. Where I'm at, it's getting more relaxed. So I hope that you're able to get out and enjoy other people's company and be able to get out and have a little bit of a life and enjoy yourselves, Lori. I hope. Oh, that sucks, Geraldine. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I think you might be stuck with online. One thing that is nice about the dollar store paints, though, is you could mix some of your own colors, right? You take some green and some blues, and you could have a whole ton of fun just mixing different colors. I haven't been into a Michael's here lately, but I knew that with the talk of everything that was going to be coming for the lockdown, I'm sure people went in and cleared the shelves. We can't go into the Michael's now. We have to order everything online for curbside pickup. But yeah, that would be the other option, is trying the dollar store paints and just doing a ton of color mixing. Yeah, Walmart usually does have a good selection. The hard part here, Walmart's an option for sure. There's quite a bit at Hobby Lobby. There you go. So there's some options there. Yeah, we don't have that up here in Canada. We have Michael's. You could have a look too. There's some great online Canadian art supply stores if you are here in Canada, and keep an eye in the US too. I know in the US you have there's Blick Art Supplies. They're supposed to be really, really good. They might have some great ones. Plaid Online might be good ones as opposed to Amazon. You can buy the same products in both places. Plaid is your Apple Barrel folk art color shift paints. In Canada, I think, Barb, was it Gales Wholesale? That's an online craft store. Above Ground Art Supply is another Canadian art supply store. They're actually the art supply store that all of the art students at Ryerson University in Toronto, all of the art students, they get all of their paints from there. So unfortunately, online is going to be probably your best option unless you can get into a Walmart. Like here in Ontario, we can't even go in the craft aisles at Walmart anymore. So hopefully you can maybe try that one too. I work in court. We're not letting anyone in. Maybe in July we will let litigants in. It's got to be so stressful. It's so stressful for everybody. Oh, you're welcome. Desserts too. Yeah, I never thought of desserts. Really good, good idea, Christy. So just doing a good Google of Canadian art supply stores and see what you find if you want to be able to shop within Canada, or looking at some of the US ones as well. The hard part with the US ones is you risk the chance of having to pay a bunch of duty as well as your shipping costs. But that might be an option for you. What other questions do you guys have? We did pretty good. We did 1 hour and 40 minutes on this stuff already. I wasn't sure it was going to be that long of a tutorial. I hope that this was helpful. Above Ground seems to be an easier to navigate website. Oh, good. Good. I'm glad that they've got some cool stuff on there. Plaid Online too, you guys. I'm a Plaid ambassador, which means I work with Plaid, who does, like I said, folk art. Martha Stewart Paints used to be a Plaid product. And the Color Shift paints, they've got a lot of cool stuff to paint on. Like a lot of cool stuff to paint on. So even taking a look at them, they have really cool wooden boxes. You could make them into a tea box. They could also be a stash box, but they could be a tea box. So there's all kinds of really cool stuff on there that you can get. They had a bunch of different birdhouses too. The birdhouse that I got at the dollar store. It's just a matter of where you can get into and where you can order from. If you can get in there, you can find all kinds of stuff. If you can't, then you're stuck with online, right? So we don't know for sure what's happening with Martha Stewart Paints. What we know for sure is that it's no longer a Plaid product. What I've heard through the grapevine and what my thought is on Martha Stewart is it was a very well-performing craft line. I doubt that it's going to go away. I think it's just going to go to a different manufacturer / supplier. That's my thought. So I think there's going to be just going to be some kind of carryover there, like a bit of a lag time before we see that go in. I wouldn't be surprised if she rebrands and gets more out there though, because her paints are fantastic and I love her multi-surface paints. Let's see. I really enjoy hanging out with you for some time in the afternoons, even though we didn't paint today. Time well spent. Oh, I'm so glad, Christy. I miss you. I was thinking about music trivia the other day. I met Christy by going to trivia nights at a pub in downtown Toronto called Hemingway's, which was right off the bat, I fell in love with the place because it's a New Zealand themed bar. And for those of you who don't know me, New Zealand is my obsession. I got to go in 2016. I'm a Lord of the Rings complete fanatic. And it was just it's been a dream of mine to go to New Zealand since I was about 10 years old. And So I met Christy by going for some trivia nights, and we used to get to go for music trivia, and it was so much fun. So much fun. And I'm excited for the days when we can get to do that again. The fees from Ontario to the place I shipped to was kind of pricey. And that's the hard part, right? The shipping is where it gets you. The price of the items might be okay, but it depends on how much it's going to cost you to get it there, right? But when our hands are so tied right now. I hope so too, Tammy, because I love her paints too. I really, really liked them, especially the multi-surface for my mugs and stuff. I still keep an eye out on the clearance buckets and everything at Michael's just on the chance that there might be some rogue bottle of paint shoved in there somewhere, because they were fantastic. Have you ever painted on driftwood? No, I haven't, but that would be beautiful. That would be absolutely beautiful. I think you'd want to give it a good sanding and maybe a good bleaching. But you totally could. Totally could. Mine's Australia. That's my next one. Yeah. I want to hug a koala. I want to hug a wombat really bad. Really, really bad. Plus they rage. Yeah, it's crazy. And even the prices on Amazon, right? You can go to the store and buy a bottle of paint for $2.79, but if you order it off Amazon, you're paying $4.79. Like, be really, really careful with who you're ordering from on Amazon to make sure it's an actual manufacturer and supplier, because they're not doing that as much as the private sellers are, right? Oh, Ireland would be great. Oh, Geraldine, you totally need to paint on that. That'll be so cool. Please let us know how you do with it. America, we don't have different shipping extras to each state, but there are some cheaper states to ship from. Ah, gotcha. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, so you want to pick on where it's coming from, right? Yeah. Ireland, I always thought that one of these days I'd do Ireland and England, and because I want to go and go see Hogwarts in England, and then go to Ireland and meet a handsome Irishman and be ready to go. DeSaris is grout. Oh, cool. Oh, awesome. I never even thought of them. Thank you so much, Christy, for reminding us about DeSaris. Never would have thought of it. So I want to leave you with a little bit on the breakthrough that I had last night, because it was big, and I feel like somebody might be able to relate, and it might help a little bit. Growing up, one of the great things that my mom taught me was that I always have the right to change my mind, right? I can agree to do something, and if I decide that I no longer want to do it, I am always allowed to change my mind. But what my mom also taught me was, if you're going to change your mind, you have to come up with a good reason why you're changing your mind, so that people won't ask questions and give you the third degree. And she also taught me that lying is unacceptable, right? One of the rules in my house, and I get it, it makes sense. She said, you will always be in more trouble if you do something that I'm not happy about. You're always going to be in more trouble if you lie to me about it. But what I realized that it's done is it's caused me to look for excuses to get out of doing things that I don't want to do, as opposed to becoming comfortable with just speaking my truth, right? So instead of telling somebody, that doesn't work for me, maybe another time, which should be more than sufficient, I automatically go to, I need to come up with an explanation that they are going to accept, and they're not going to ask a bunch of questions, and they're just going to be okay with. And what I realized is that I do that with overwhelm. So I go through cycles of being energetic, inspired, productive, having all these ideas, and to a cycle of being overwhelmed and paralyzed, basically. What I realized is that I'm not overwhelmed, because what's actually in front of me is all manageable, and it's all fixable. Any issues are fixable, and everything is doable. The overwhelm comes from in my head going, I can't do this because I need to get back to be able to do this. And then when I get back home, because I didn't go and do item A, I get back home so I can do item B, and then I sit on the couch and I watch TV or I take a nap or I do something different because I'm so energetically drained from having to explain myself to people. So I realized that I don't have to explain myself to people. I just have to get comfortable with speaking my truth. So if somebody asks me to do something or asks me to do something with them, to go visiting, to go doing whatever, I'm always going to be mentally in a better spot if I can just speak my truth and say, this doesn't work for me, perhaps another time, and leave it at that. The reason that I'm talking about this right now is because I realize that it's what's been holding me back in my business, because I've got all of these things that I want to do. And I had this moment the other day where I said, why am I not doing these things? Why am I not sitting and painting for 10 hours because I love it and I want to do it? Why am I not doing these things? Why am I taking my time? Why am I putting things off? Why am I not sitting in front of the computer and putting my artwork on products that could actually build my business and build a brand line, right? It was because I was so convinced, I had convinced myself so surely that I'm overwhelmed now. If I do all of that, I'm just going to be more overwhelmed, right? So this breakthrough that I had was really, I've created the overwhelm by not speaking my truth. I have created it so much that I just believe it is a part of my life and that it is something that is out of my control because I wanted to avoid the discomfort of speaking my truth and saying, thank you, but no thank you. Right? Yes, no is a complete sentence. Yes. No, I haven't, Christy. That's interesting. Ask versus guess culture. I want to explore that because this was a big thing for me because I was like, I've been struggling financially. I've been struggling with the weight of finances like so many people through the pandemic. And I've been blaming it on things and I've been blaming it on myself. If you weren't so lazy, if you could just get your shit together, if you would just sit down and suck it up and do these things that you say you don't want to do because they're going to make you some money, things could be different. It was very blame and it was very much blaming at myself, right? But when I kind of looked and said, the only blame that I'm going to give myself is that I created that overwhelm. The overwhelm isn't actually happening. I'm not working 17-hour days and pulling all-nighters and forgetting to eat and dropping from stress and all of those things. All of the stress that I've been feeling has been stress that I have created because I am so hyper-focused on not being overwhelmed while still portraying to other people who have expectations of me that I am overwhelmed. And that's why I don't have time to do what they've asked me to do. So it was very conflicting, right? And again, it was why haven't I just started this foundation that I want to start? Why haven't I done all of these things? Why am I struggling financially? Because all I've been saying to myself is, I'm overwhelmed and I don't have any money. And what you say and what you focus on becomes your reality. So I just wanted to share that in case anybody else kind of goes through that. And I see what you guys are typing here and that there are some people that are relating to this. So I appreciate that you are being a space for me to kind of talk about this a little bit. But I hope that this helps because I don't want to upset other people by saying no. I don't want them to take it personal, but that also comes with the realization that if I am saying everything that I need to say that is truthful and honest, and I'm saying it in as kind of a way as I can, how someone else interprets it is not my responsibility and has nothing to do with me. Right? It's been a really big 24 hours for me to try and kind of internalize that and really understand what that means for me. And I use affirmations a lot, and I'm now saying these affirmations going, I'm not overwhelmed. I created my overwhelm so I can create the opposite of that. I created a lack of financial abundance and security, and I can create the opposite of that by simply not talking about the lack anymore and talking about things that simply aren't true that I've convinced myself to believe they're true. So anyways, it's just been a really, really big breakthrough for me, and I'm still, again, trying to kind of internalize and integrate it all in, and I'm catching myself in different thought patterns now that I wasn't catching myself on before. But I hope that helps. Like you said, no is a complete sentence. You do not have to give a reason. If I'm saying what I need to say that protects me and my emotions and my energy, and I'm saying it as kindly as I can, how somebody else takes it and interprets it is not my responsibility. It's my responsibility of how I present it, but I don't have to present it in a way that somebody else is going to be okay with. Because the big, big truth that I've really come to realize too is that if I'm not taking care of me, if I am not being selfish and looking after myself and looking after my energy and my happiness, I am nowhere near at my level of ability to help the people around me that I love so much. I cannot do for you more than what I'm willing to do for myself. So I'm kind of looking at this as a huge breakthrough. It's a big weight off my shoulders. It's a new way to think of things. And I'm really, really, really excited that you guys are all on this ride with me, because I think things are going to get really, really fun. Really, really fun. Okay, let me read these comments because I want to be able to talk to you guys about this. I'm so overwhelmed. I want to do it, but I'm nervous how to go. So I didn't. I said no, right? And that's the other thing too. If I'm trying to find the answer is not coming to me, right? I need to say, this is what I want to do. I don't need to know how to do it right now. I'm just going to let the answer come to me because it will, right? I will totally look it up, Christy. Thank you. Maybe a guess are dealing with a whole lot of askers. Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate just from that one sentence. Yeah, a lot of askers. But I also want to stay away from that and from labeling everybody else too. But it's a perspective, and that perspective will be huge. Brene Brown is really, really good too. Yeah, she's amazing. Oh, thank you, Christy. You're so sweet. I'm so glad that this is helpful, you guys. I think a lot of us here needed to hear this. Oh, I love you too. I love you too. Those are negatives, Jamie. I love that you talk about the truth. Oh, thank you, you guys. We put a lot of weight on ourselves, right? To do things a certain way and to be accepted. I still feel like I have to prove myself to so many people that I can make my art a career, and a successful one, and a lucrative one. So I'm going to work and focus and give some attention to just letting that stuff go and following my intuition and listening to myself and speaking my truth and see what happens. Let's just see what happens. Like, what the hell, right? What I've been doing up until now isn't working, obviously. So why not try something different? Let's just see what happens. Why not? Oh, you're welcome, Kim. I'm so glad that's helpful. You always recharge me after. Oh, you guys. This is my why. This is my why. Thank you. Yes, their comfort is not my responsibility. I saw the text come through. Thank you, Christy. And maybe I'll post it on the group too. It is. It's all coming. That's my affirmation right now, Catherine. It's so funny. My affirmation now that I say two different ones. And you might have heard this on the live last night, but the first one I say is, the financial abundance and financial security that I am seeking is also seeking me. And I am now removing any and all blocks that stand between us. And I say it and I just like a roar, right? And then the other one that I say is, I am so happy and grateful now that money flows to me easily and freely in increasing amounts from multiple sources on a consistent basis. I am happy, I am healthy, and I am wealthy. It is done. And it just feels good. I'm so glad that this has been a good afternoon for you guys. Thank you so much for coming and spend some time with me. I'm going to ask you guys a favor. I am going to post out later in the Facebook group. If you're not a member of the Facebook group already, I think most of you are. I'm doing a giveaway in the Facebook group. So it's Mandala Addicts by Mandala Love Affair. If you go to the link in my Mandala Love Affair bio in the link tree, you'll find a link to the Facebook group. In the Facebook group, I'm doing a giveaway that's going to end midnight on Tuesday for some DIY Mandala Stones dotting tools and for some surfaces to paint on. Okay, so if you want to enter, the only thing you have to do is to put a comment down of which prize pack you want to win. You can enter for both, and for each prize pack that you want to enter for, you have to share a song that makes you happy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of these comments and I'm going to create us a playlist that I'm going to share in the group of all of these songs so that we can listen to each other's happy songs. And we'll start listening to them on the lives as well. So if you want to be a part of the Facebook group, again, it's Mandala Addicts by Mandala Love Affair. And if you go to the link in my Mandala Love Affair bio, either on Instagram, TikTok, or here on Facebook, in the Linktree link, you will find a button there that you can push that will take you directly to the Facebook group. Make sure that if you are not a member, that if you go to request to join, please make sure you accept the rules. If I get a request to join the group and it says there is no response for the rules, for accepting the rules, I decline that request immediately. So please make sure you accept the rules for that, okay? Number 2, I've decided that I'm going to manifest a tiny house for myself. So the way I'm going to do that, I have downloadable coloring pages on my website. You can get 5 downloadable coloring pages for $1. I have 8 different packs. 4 packs are just mandalas. 4 packs are positive messages that you can say. And I have 4 packs that are swear words in the adult language section. So there's 12 different packs. Every $1 that I make from the sale of those coloring pages, I'm putting in a special bank account that is going to be where I save up for my tiny house. And so if you know of anybody that likes coloring pages, that is looking for, especially in Ontario with kids on lockdown and all of that sort of stuff, anybody who's looking for some new coloring pages, if you would be so kind as to share my website with them so that they can see those coloring pages, I would be very, very grateful. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. I will see you again next Saturday. TikTok Lives will be Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. and Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you want to hang out with me there. I'm going to be adding more lives starting the beginning of May. We're going to go back up to 3 or 4 lives a week. And I'm going to be starting to stream on Twitch. So there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff coming. Thank you so much for coming and choosing to spend so much time with me, you guys. Love you all so, so much. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. I will do my absolute best to help you. I guess that's it. I guess that's the end of my verbal diarrhea for the day. What's the subject next Saturday? That's a really good question, Sharon. Let me pull it up and we will see. A very, very good question. Pull up Facebook. We got Mandala Love Affair events. Saturday, April 24th, we are going back to basics. So we are going to start with layouts. We're going to start with spacing, just like we did with this one, how to get the spacing in there. We're going to go into walking dots and swoops and just talk about those key designs that I wrote down on a piece of paper that is now on the other side of the room because it fell off my desk. So we're going to do some basics. And then on Saturday, May 1st, we are going to make some stones and we're going to work on some resin pendants. So I'm going to show you how I mix and pour the resin to make the base part of these pendants. I'm going to have some that are painted that need the top part of the resin. And I'm going to have some gypsum made up in the molds so that we can... and some that are ready to come out of the molds as well, so that we can go through all of that mold making on May 1st. Balbir, please take care of yourself. We're sending you so much love and healing energy. I hope you're going to do okay. That's okay, Sharon. You'll get the recording, which will be good. But it'll be weird not having you here. It's going to be so strange. But let's all send Balbir some loving and healing energy as well to get through this with COVID. And the rest of you, please stay safe. Please take care of your energy. Please speak your truth. Please remember that no is a complete sentence, and that you are not responsible for how other people interpret what you say. You are all super kind, loving people. And if you are speaking your truth from a place of love, that's all we can ever do. I clicked on the join Facebook group and there was nothing. Oh, wasn't there? Oh, that's okay. Okay, and I'll see your name, Lisa, so no worries. We'll get you in there. That's really weird. Really strange. We'll take care of it, though. No worries, Lisa. Got you covered. Here you are. You're in, Lisa. Gotcha. You're all set. All right, you guys. You're welcome, you guys. Okay, take care of yourselves. I love you. Thank you again for choosing to spend time with me. I love getting to spend time with you guys, and I'm already looking forward to next week. And yeah, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you, okay? Love you guys. Bye. Mwah.